Hi, Dr. Francis.
And hello to you, Dr. Murray. How are you?
I am delighted to spend this time with you, and we get to do kind of a wrap-up of Making Nice with Naughty.
Yes, here we are at the end of this journey of going through the Making Nice with Naughty book, and I am excited to be able to summarize what we've spent the last, it's been, although on YouTube it might look like it's just a few episodes, it has been probably a year in the development and us coming together as our schedule can support. So yes, I'm very excited to see this.
Yeah, and it's just that we get to spend time offline too, and your friendship has meant so much to me over these years.
Well, I am eager to get started on this summary. So when I think about this journey that we've been through and where we are right now, those that have been following us through this, or who may be seeing this now, I would say either you're only watching this episode because it's going to give the entire summary of the book, or you have gone through it all and now you're just kind of this is the bow on the package, so to speak. Well, just thinking about the very, very beginning, Tom, when we started this journey, I wanted to ask you, what was your motivation to use that phrase, making nice with naughty? And how does it capture the book's the theme of the book? How does it capture that?
Yeah. For a lot of people who are over-controlled, and that's really, again, the overarching theme of the book was examining the sexual lives of people with the over-controlled temperament, and for many who are over-controlled, their self-expression, including their sexual expression, has been quite confined. Right, where they've suppressed even their innate sexual expression, where having fun has been a challenge for them. And so making nice with naughty is essentially reclaiming, kind of making friends with that ability to be naughty, the ability to express yourself sexually, to have fun, to let loose, to be creative, to tolerate some anxiety in the pursuit of sexual fulfillment. And so that reminder of making nice with naughty, making friends with naughty, is a pathway towards sexual fulfillment.
I think it's great. I think that you should, so I don't know if this is possible, but it would be tons funny if the book was, for those that are buying it as the hardcover, or is it available in paperback?
In paperback and audio.
Okay. Don't you think that it should be sold in a brown paper sack? Wouldn't that be so funny? Like the alcohol that's in the bags, like the really thin brown sacks with the kind of the rough edge, and it's just stuck in that sack, and it shows up that way, so nobody knows what you're buying. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, having a little brown paper sack that has all kinds of different fun activities also, I think could be. Maybe you're onto something.
I'm just thinking that they might look at the cover and then go back in the back a space, go into the aisle, like, I don't know, wherever, something that people don't look at, with encyclopedias are at the library, and sit there and look at this book, and hopeful that nobody will see them. So,
well, I think there's a number of people who purchased the ebook, and I wonder if they're doing that so they don't have to have a hard copy. And I also noticed that despite how many books have been sold, there's not a lot of people who leave reviews, which, by the way, listeners, if you've read the book, please leave a review. It means so much to prospective readers that they see that others have had a positive experience with it. But I think leaving a review means opening yourself up to other people knowing this part of your life that many people have felt embarrassed about and ashamed of, etc.
I I agree. I agree. I think anyway, I love the title, and it certainly causes people to kind of wonder, what's this all about? So let's bounce off to the next chapter.
Yeah.
Again, if you want to know more about that, look at the timestamp. Go check out that episode we speak more about that.
Yeah.
So in the next chapter, you introduce us to the character. His name is Kirk. Right. And so Kirk has a struggle with sexual anxiety, and it seems to serve as a central narrative for the chapter. Can you elaborate on why this storyline was significant for you to explore and what you were hoping that the readers would take away from his experience?
Yeah. So, Kirk, as I kind of highlight in the book, has a history of anxiety relative to sex, and he doesn't feel like he can be confident to enjoy sex without feeling guilty, ashamed, awkward, embarrassed. These are all common feelings, and Kirk says that the uncertainty around sex is like a quicksand. And he says, I feel myself sinking and immobilized to do anything. And so I use that metaphor. I thought it was really striking gold that he would use the metaphor, because to get out of quicksand, right, we know what not to do, which is what? Do you remember?
Well, you don't struggle.
You don't struggle, right? You don't struggle and start flapping around, because what does that do? That tends to liquefy the quicksand more, and you sink even further, right? And so the irony, to save yourself from quicksand, and if the viewers or listeners are old enough, they would recall that in the 70s in particular, all kinds of TV shows had depictions of people being sucked into quicksand. And I don't know about you, but I'll be 48 this year. I have never come across quicksand. But as a child, I was afraid that I would. But in if you were to encounter quicksand, how you get out of it is that you fall back onto it. Right? You fall back onto it, and you kind of get as much surface area of your body onto the quicksand, and then you roll off of it. Right. So you've gotten a lot of surface area, and in essence, helping Kirk to see that getting closer to the thing that he's afraid of is the pathway to making nice with naughty. That if he struggles with it, if he tries to avoid it, if he engages in a lot of negative self-talk about it, right? It's not right. It's not fair. Why does this happen to me? All of this kind of stuff. Then it just feeds that struggle. When getting to a place of almost acceptance, okay, this is my experience, and now once you're free of the fear of sinking, you see opportunity, possibility. You can roll off and then move on to the next thing. So that's the kind of the idea of Kirk is changing his relationship with the thing that he was scared most of.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I also love that, you use that quicksand analogy just to kind of help us. We all can. I doubt there's anybody out there that has been stuck in quicksand. Okay. But we all know about it. We all know about it. And to to be able to find something like that that everybody can attach themselves to, and there's
Yeah.
a genuine fear because, oh my god, you just sink right in there and then you're gone and there you
Yeah.
are.
Right.
It is really helpful, but I'm super curious, how did you come across the quicksand um, as that analogy though? So was that just something that you've used in the past in your clinical practice, or did you just have an epiphany, wake up with that idea at one point?
It comes from the acceptance and commitment therapy
I see.
metaphors, and what I love about acceptance and commitment therapy, are also known as ACT, that it uses a lot of metaphors.
Mm-hmm.
And as a clinician, I naturally have used metaphors over the years.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably getting too much into the weeds, kind of how the sausage is made. But there was a, 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 a psychotherapist who I think was he might have been a gynecologist, actually, an MD who back in the day, people changed specialties quite easier than they do now, called Milton Erickson. And Milton Erickson was a hypnotist. His specialty was in hypnosis, and he wasn't the kind of person that would do hypnosis in the style that we're most familiar with, where swinging a watch, and
Mm-hmm.
that it wasn't that kind of cliche, but he would use metaphor as a way to help the client see alternatives,
Oh, sure.
and how his telling of it was so captivating,
Mm-hmm.
and would put his patients into a trance just by his telling of a story, and that kind of speaking to the unconscious mind. And so in some ways that has come naturally to me, but ACT in particular uses this metaphor of the value of acceptance, right? Which is very hard for
Mm-hmm.
a lot of over-controlled people, right? The
Yeah.
over-controlled people tend to be doers, and they misinterpret, or they think acceptance is just another form of resignation. But notice when I say fall back on the quicksand, I'm not saying
Yeah.
fall back on the quicksand and keep your ass there.
Right. You're rolling.
That's the next phase, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
the reality of I'm getting stuck. I'm in quicksand. That's the reality. I'm not going to try to fight against reality.
Mm-hmm.
And then with acceptance, I'm now free
Oh,
of the
sure.
struggle to be able to then take advantage of possibility.
Yeah, I think that um, my background primarily is nursing, and nursing inherently is caregiving and education, teaching. Just
Hmm.
kind of goes hand in hand. It doesn't matter what degree or what level of nursing you are, right? There's a lot of caring and then education. And what I know is that if I can't relate to the person that I'm talking to, then my talking is for naught.
Yes.
I might as well be speaking a foreign language to them because they're not going to hear or understand what it is I'm trying to say. So, the beauty I see of analogy too is that it allows people to get it,
Hmm.
to get it. And, and to be able to explain something as difficult as the concept that you're talking about, and although nobody has to have the experience of going into quicksand, they can all in their mind see what that experience would be like. I think that's an important piece too, is as we do analogies. I talk a lot about gardening. I wouldn't call myself an
Yeah.
avid gardener, but I can say things like that, that we have to pull our weeds. We have to pull the weeds out of the flower bed to have our flowers flourish. Things like that. And the people don't have to, they don't have to have a flower bed and actually experience pulling weeds to understand what I'm trying to say. So I think that is also an important aspect. And I just love how that how that analogy in particular, how it really helps people kind of understand and at least starts the conversation, right? So I
Yeah.
uh-huh. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and just to add to that, um, many of us have had experiences of feeling stuck,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Of immobilized by whatever life situation we're experiencing in the moment.
Mhm.
And uh, uh, a lot of a question, as you know, that a lot of patients ask in therapy is why am I so stuck about this?
Mhm.
You know, why is this persisting in my life?
Mhm.
And I think it persists because we resist,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
We make it a big deal.
We make it a big deal. Yeah, and of course, it feels like a big deal in part if what you're stuck around has the added element of self judgment.
Sure. Sure.
You know, I'm not
Mhm.
good enough, capable enough, talented enough, smart enough, pretty enough, whatever it is, whatever
Mhm.
not enoughness is there, right? We can't
Right.
run away from ourselves, and
True,
that
although we
helps to
do
feel this.
try. Yeah. Many of us try to run away and that's the other piece I think. And you know, you talk about it chapter 3, chapter 4 about looking at things from a different perspective because clearly whatever that over controlled person has been doing, it has not been it hasn't really worked out well for them, you
Right.
know. And so
Sometimes, some,
I say that to people. Do you ever say that to people? How's that working out for you?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sometimes I'll joke with my clients and say running away from our feelings is some of our only exercise.
Oh, yeah,
Right?
that's true too. That's
Maybe
true
the only
too.
exercise we get is running away from our feelings or running
Oh,
away from our problems. Yeah.
yeah, and so realizing and to me it connects very much to anxiety disorders in the sense that there's such a profound fear
Mm,
that once that fear is exposed and you see it for what it's worth, it loses its power. But getting to
yes,
that place is where it some people get stuck, right?
that's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Well, as we travel down, let's see. In chapter 5, uh, there was a you have mentioned a lot about the various therapy approaches. You talked about acceptance and commitment therapy, radically open dialectical behavior therapy, and can you talk more about how those therapies how they actually support, you know, concretely, how do they support someone in Kirk's position?
Right. So a lot of the approaches that I describe in the book are
Mm-hmm.
really approaches aimed to create psychological flexibility, thinking differently about their problem.
Mm-hmm.
And the my goal is to provide a lot of different avenues by which the reader can begin thinking about their problems
Mm-hmm.
differently. And um, when we think differently about our problems, it has the impact of helping us to feel differently about the problems we're having,
Oh,
right?
sure. Sure.
And for particularly for over controlled people, one of the things we've covered in the past is the tendency to have a fixed mindset or a fatalistic mindset. So in the example I share about Kirk, you know, Kirk has a much more of a fatalistic mindset around his sexuality, this sense of it's never going to get any better, right? Nothing's going to change. And then, that's the sinking, right? That's the loss of a hope.
Right. Right.
And so these strategies that I use in the book, and these different approaches is an attempt to think differently, so that you can feel differently and then do differently.
Yeah.
Right. Because the do different, remember, from an RODBT, radically open dialectical behavior therapy perspective, is that mental wellness is about creating a life worth sharing. And that requires the willingness to be vulnerable, which vulnerability creates a lot of uncertainty for over-controlled people, and that's the thing they want to avoid the most, is the feelings of uncertainty. And yet, accepting that vulnerability is part of developing greater intimacy, then that impacts how they show up relationally. And when they show up better relationally, that will have a positive impact on their experience sexually.
To me, it's like putting on a pair of glasses, right? That's my analogy. If I
Okay.
take my glasses off, I don't see so good. I ain't got good vision.
Yeah.
I put my glasses on and now I can see things from a different perspective. Oh, that's what
Mm-hmm.
that is. Oh, I understand. I actually know I can go forth with absolute clarity. So for me, it's almost a a little of this therapy, a little of that therapy, a little of this therapy. It's all the prescription that goes into
Mm.
the glasses.
Yeah. Yeah. This. I was recently at a sex therapy conference, and most people attending this conference have gone to graduate school,
Sure.
right? And people who go to graduate school tend to be over controlled, right? And it's a necessary
Yeah.
part of getting through graduate school. Uh, and so I was very fascinated watching these people who specialize in sex and sexuality not exude much of sexual energy,
Oh.
right? Which, I think I talk about early in the book, that's one of the first things that drove me to seeing a therapist more than a decade ago. Was this realization of, I don't exude much of a sexuality, and my psychologist at the time said, "You're right, you don't." Uh, uh,
But you'll make a
and
great therapist.
and so, uh, what am I getting at? Well, part of exuding sexuality is having an awareness of yourself relationally.
Yeah.
Right? What is the impact that I'm having with the people that I'm surrounded by? And if I show up as aloof, if I show up as neutral faced, if I show up as standoffish, right,
Hmm.
then my partner or friends, prospective friends, whatever, that's what they're going to be experiencing. And so they're not going to be all that interested in
Hmm.
having a sexual relationship with me or having a friendship with me. And so that
Hmm.
then feeds itself. And so then you have this dance that emerges relationally, that I'm trying to get the over-controlled person to see that some of the reasons that they uh, uh, have difficulty making nice with naughty is part biotemperament, that they were born with certain genetic predispositions, but that it can be exacerbated by what their own behaviors are in how they show up relationally.
Hmm. Hmm. I I it's interesting that you would see that in that group of people. That's kind of surprising to me. So let's tootle down this path. Now, in chapter 6, you talk about values. And so
Mm,
the title of the chapter is Letting Your Values Guide You. And my question is, again, value clarification is a significant theme in the book. No
yes.
doubt, no doubt, no doubt. Could you discuss how defining personal values contributes to overcoming sexual anxiety and improving intimacy? How do those things even connect?
Yeah. So values are essentially your lighthouse. They're the thing that's guiding your behavior. It's a way of reflecting on what is important to me,
Mm-hmm.
what is meaningful to me. And so, if having a meaningful, fulfilling sexual relationship is important, then I then have to be asking whether the behaviors that I'm choosing are consistent with that value. Uh, with that, though, I will just add these values have to be freely chosen.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They can't be, what other people say is important, but they're really coming from a sense of self-awareness of what is important to me in my life. And of course, we're specifically talking about a sexual and intimate relationships, but
Mm-hmm.
you're expressing values within your career, within your family life, all kinds of different domains.
Sure.
You're expressing values, and life is made harder when we're behaving in ways that are inconsistent with our values. According to
Hmm.
acceptance and commitment therapy, it's
Mm-hmm.
really when we're behaving in ways that are inconsistent with our values. Like, for example, I know a lot of over controlled people that may have the thought, maybe they're having a fight with their partner and they have the thought of, what, there's a part of me that wants to reach out and touch my partner's lap. Maybe they're driving
Mm-hmm.
and but they're and so their mind has the thought of, oh, that's something I probably should do because I want to show that I can be connected to them. But then they have this other part of them that feels, oh, that would be too awkward, it would be too anxious, I would be too anxious to do that, so I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to not do
Hmm.
it because I don't want to feel the feelings I anticipate I'll feel in the doing it, even though
Hmm.
reaching out, touching their partner would reflect their values. And
Right.
so I'm really wanting the reader to do what's consistent with their values, even when it's hard,
Mm-hmm.
even when it's hard. And if they're willing to trust the process, doing it, even when it's hard, will ultimately lead to a much more fulfilling relationship,
Sure. Sure. Improving their intimacy.
improving their intimacy. Yeah.
Hmm.
How would their partner respond by doing what's hard? So I have some clients. I deal with couples who experience infidelity
Mm-hmm.
quite a lot, and one of the a couple of the observations I've had over the years is that, and I'll use a heteronormative couple, and the husband has had the affair, for example, that the wife will, when things are going well, the wife's thought is, I wonder if he's forgotten how much he's hurt me. Where the husband's thought is, you know what? Things are going so well. I don't want to bring it up. When precisely the bringing it up when things are going well
Is the
is a
time.
way of communicating to his wife, hey, things are going so well, and I want you to know that I've not forgotten how much I've hurt you, that it's
Yeah.
still at the forefront of my mind,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of men aren't willing to do what's hard, right? They don't want to do what's hard, but from their wives' perspectives, it's precisely their willingness to do what's hard that helps them to feel like trust can start to be reestablished. Yeah.
Yes, I completely agree with you. That's the essence of the book to me is vulnerability, understand that there's value in that, and then being able to enjoy the rewards of it
Yes.
through the intimacy. So in chapter 7, thinking again, we're talking about the goals. You really discuss and you really drive home the point to not mistake values for goals. Can you do you mind elaborating more on that and kind of explaining why is that so important?
Yeah. Goals are one and done. You kind of check it off, right? So I'm if I have a let's say I have a value of helping my community alleviate hunger, and then I go and I see someone who's on the street corner, and they're unhoused, and I give them a meal that I purchased. Well, does that mean that I'm done pursuing, or am I done with the pursuit of eliminating hunger? No, because that one goal, doing that one thing, doesn't mean that I've met the value. So values are like the North Star, that no matter how far you travel, you'll never arrive at the North Star. But the North Star gives you a sense of the direction that you're going,
I see.
right?
I see.
Um, the other thing I'll add, and I'm not sure I talk about this in the book, but it's an important distinction. Goals are things that you have total control over achieving. Everything else is an outcome. So if you don't have total control over it, it's not a goal. So I have total control over handing a meal to someone. I don't have total control over whether they accept it.
Oh.
Right, and that's an outcome, right? Their acceptance of it is the outcome. But if I make the overture and they don't accept it, that doesn't mean I failed, because the goal was to make the overture. And that's another important piece with making nice with naughty, is focusing on what you have total control over, and
Mm-hmm.
leave everything else as that's just the outcome. Right. So I may, in my attempt to make nice with naughty, I may actually do something that I've never done before, and that's pursue my partner sexually, because I'm, maybe historically have been afraid to do it because I didn't want to be rejected. But
Mm-hmm.
now it's my pursuit that becomes the goal. Whether my partner responds or not, I have no control over. That's the outcome. And so I'm only going to make evaluative opinions about myself based on my goal. That is, whether I do the goal or not do the goal. I won't make an evaluative decision about myself based on the outcome.
You do not discuss this in the book. But
Well, that's a little extra for you.
yeah, but what I was just thinking though, Tom, and take this for what it's worth, you've really you've really stumbled, or this comment has is causing me to think as well, in the sense of goals are often built with that outcome in mind.
That's right.
Right? I want to lose weight. My God, I have been working on losing weight since I had my second child and I gained a gazillion pounds. Okay. So that's been 35 years ago. I want to lose weight. I have tried a million different things, and I've set goals like I'm going to work out so many times a week. I'm going to eliminate this. I'm going to do this. And I've lost some weight. I've lost a lot of weight over the years, but it's interesting that the outcome, so many times the outcome is what drives our goal. So it's natural to think that the outcome is part of the goal. So there's really something here, Tom. I know I'm all over the place, but there's really something here, because that to understand that goals are those things we have 100% control over, meaning I'm going to do XYZ, right?
Doesn't require anybody else's participation.
Nobody else's participation. But the formulation of that goal seems to me to be in this outcome that really could even be a fantasy,
Mm.
right? Or the why. You heard that, like the why behind our reasoning for doing something, for setting that goal in the first place. And now you're telling me that the outcome is we don't have any control over that.
We don't have any direct control over it. So often what happens is I'll have some clients who say they focus too much. They focus extensively on frequency of sex as a measure, as some kind of barometer of a quality sex life. So they'll say, "I want to have sex, twice a week." Well, because unless they're talking about solo sex or masturbation,
Mm-hmm.
that's an outcome. So a different way of saying it is, well, what are they going to do
Mm-hmm.
that increases the probability or the likelihood that their partner may be responsive, right? That's a goal. So I'm gonna do what I can do to increase the likelihood, or to create a context for sex. But
Mm-hmm.
my partner is an independent person with their own needs, wants, desires. They're going to either respond or
Mm-hmm.
not respond, and I don't have no control over that.
That is your next book, Tom. That has to be. That is the next thing that makes sense for this series that you're doing. But that has to be the next thing, because so many people, our message that we hear in all self-help books is figure out the why, figure out what you want the outcome to be, and then reverse engineer it by setting up goals. And so many times that has failed.
Mm.
And it's failed because we're we're basing goals on outcomes that we have no control over. But you do not read that anywhere. But that's
Well,
reality.
yeah, it is the reality. So, listeners, if you agree with Dr. Francis, then leave a comment. We would love to hear from
I'm
you.
leaving a comment, Tom. All right. Well, we'll keep tootling through.
Yeah.
I I do appreciate you spending a little bit more time on that, because it's that there is something there. There truly is. All right. So that was chapter 7. So in chapter 8, it is, I'm looking for the title. Chapter is Taming the Monkey. So it's all about that brain. So you talked about that. Let's see. So again, let's go back to Kirk and his wife. And I'm so sorry for all the Kirks out there. So Kirk's realization that his wife did not want to have a perfect husband, rather a good enough one, and that was a real turning point for him when he realized, good enough is okay. How do you suggest people navigate those societal pressures that they feel like, I guess, demand perfection, particularly that around the sexuality and masculinity?
Well, we go back to how workable is it,
Mm.
right? That when perfection is the standard,
Yeah, we're all
then
screwed.
right. Or not in this case.
Or not.
And so, um, in chapter 8, I explore a little bit more in detail mindfulness meditations. And the purpose of mindfulness is to be able to observe the activity of the mind, which in this case would be this perfectionism,
Mm-hmm.
and see that activity as a cloud passing into awareness, coming into awareness, and then passing out of awareness. Right? That over controlled people tend to be perfectionists by nature, so that's some default
Sure.
programming there.
Sure.
And yet we don't need to lasso the cloud and then be drug along. We can let go of it so that we recognize, oh, there's that default programming. my intention in this moment is to have fun.
Yeah.
Right? I was talking to a client the other day who has anxiety induced erectile disappointment. And his idea was, essentially, well, his erect penis was the star of the show. That was
Aw.
the basic presentation. And to realize that, no, you are the star of the show.
Right.
Your penis, whether erect or not erect, is just a supporting character.
Mm-hmm.
You are the star of the show. And
Mm-hmm.
so having that understanding, and hopefully having a partner who also agrees that
Mm-hmm.
the people are the stars of the show, it's not your genitalia that are the stars, means that, oh, we can still have fun, we can still have a good time, independent of whether the supporting characters are showing up.
Right. 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 That. I love it. I just love it. I just love it. So Tom, the next chapter is it's a very triggering chapter for those of us who have, unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to look at it, gone through some sort of event that is impactful, negatively impactful in their lives. And so I just want to be cognizant about the next chapter. You have it entitled Victim to Victorious. And I think that says a lot. And in that chapter, you actually brought out the Making Nice with Naughty Goals worksheet. And I wanted to look at that worksheet real quick. Let's open that up. It's all about that forgiveness exercise. Am I correct?
Right. That's right.
So can you expand on that a little bit more in the fact, but I do want us to be sensitive to the fact that this is a it could be triggering content.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, the trauma chapter, which is really, I think, a I should say, healing chapter, is the idea of the story that we tell ourselves about our history. When we're not careful,
Mm,
the history will be what defines who we are. Alternatively, though, the victorious is when we define our history. And so that story, again, that story that we tell ourselves, um, is really important to examine whether the story that we tell ourselves is just fuel for the maintenance of the problem that brought the person to read the book in the first place,
mm,
right? Is that story fueling the continuation of the problem, or is it actually supporting a life where you're freely pursuing your values? And so
mm.
essentially, the worksheet is using what's called the heart exercise from RODBT, where the H stands for identifying past hurts. The E is locate your edge that's keeping you stuck in the past. The A is acknowledge that forgiveness is a choice. And so let me just talk about what I mean when I talk about forgiveness. And
Okay.
I like the quote that forgiveness is giving up all hope for a better past.
I love it.
Right? It's not about the other person. It's not about the person who's done you wrong. It's just freeing yourself from this mental trap that keeps us stuck in a past, frees us from that so that we are much more available and open to living the life that's here now. And
Mm,
so again, acknowledge that forgiveness is a choice. The R in heart is to reclaim your life by grieving
mm,
the loss and practicing forgiveness.
mm-hmm.
Right. So I believe I also say in the book that the best revenge is a well-lived life.
Yes. Yes.
Right. So reclaiming your life. And then the T in heart is practice thankfulness and pass it on. In other words, what are we being thankful for? We're not being thankful for what happened in the history, But one of the things that we can cultivate gratitude around is the fact that you're here in this moment listening to this podcast is all the evidence I need that you have survived everything that's ever happened to you, and that is not by accident.
Correct.
So being thankful of your own resiliency, that despite whatever, in spite of whatever has happened to you, that you have survived it. You are here right now with us listening to the podcast. You're a survivor.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love it. So empowering. I really love it. Well, and then that brings us to the concluding chapter, which is really a synopsis, a summary of all that we've spoken already. And so now I am curious, for folks that have traveled this journey with us, what is their next steps? What would you suggest they do from here?
And we somewhat talked about it already, but to underscore it, it is getting clear of what your values are. And so all of the behaviors that you've done that in essence maintain the problem, the reader is invited to be thinking about, well, how is that workable if I continue to avoid reaching out and touching my spouse when I see that they're upset or I want just some connection? How workable is that if what I ultimately want is a meaningful, fulfilling sex life, right? Most people, I would argue, would say it's not workable. Okay, well, then what would be driving me to want to do something differently? Right. And those are the values that we have. And so in chapter 10, there's a values exercise that the reader is encouraged to look at where they're setting their goals. What is it that they want differently relative to their sex life? And then what are the behaviors that they're going to take that they have total control over? What are the obstacles that they might anticipate getting in the way of those steps? So those obstacles might be, I might feel awkward, I might feel anxious. And then what are the committed actions, right? In the service of those values, in the service of that goal, you're going to do what? And then when are you going to do it? So having a sense of a time frame on doing this, that you're committing to yourself and your values, that you're going to try a new set of behaviors. And then you can ultimately assess, is that workable? Is that a little bit closer to the thing that I want than what I've been doing previously?
Oh, I agree. I also want to acknowledge all of the references that you have in your book. That is something, unfortunately, we don't see a whole lot of it in many self-help books. And to really, not only with the ebook that I'm looking at, you have the direct link, so it's kind of a no-brainer to see the data to support what you're saying. So Tom, this has been an amazing journey, and I'm so happy that I was able to link up with you and travel through this together. I've definitely have learned so much more than I ever anticipated.
Well, again, this was your idea, and I want to certainly thank you for suggesting using our time to make this into a podcast where we explore the various chapters, and I certainly have benefited from spending this time with you, and I certainly hope that our listeners and readers have benefited as well.
Yep, more to come. We'll end it with that.
For now, enjoy your journey from making nice with Nadi.
Bye.